on a weekend where the eyes of the sporting world were on a small patch of Merseyside and the Melling Road. It was a team involved in green and white that were rejoicing most of all in the UK as Plymouth Argyle got back to winning ways at home park in the Championship, beating Norwich City 2-1 yesterday afternoon. You are very welcome to tonight's episode of the Green and White Podcast, brought to you by Argyle Life. I'm back in the hot seat after what feels a really, really long extended break that I'm not sure whether or not it was enforced by the powers that be or not. I don't know whether I had a suspension similar to Mr. Randall, but I am back. I am ready to go for the run-in. Joining me tonight are my able deputy in recent weeks, James from One Team in Devon. Adam is back in his call centre in the bottom right-hand side. And Sam, unfortunately, thankfully, all the horses in the Grand National got over the chair yesterday, but it seems like Sam has not got over his chair issue quite so well. So let's head straight into it then, Sam, because this is a feeling we don't get very often. Let's talk about a win in the Championship this season. Argyle 2, Norwich 1. Take it away.
Yeah, only the 8th, I think, win in the league, that is, of the Championship this season. So, yeah, rare feeling. Yeah, I thought it was a really good performance, certainly much, much better performance to most of the dross we've seen this season. First 20 minutes were tough. Norwich really came and really had a go at us in that 20 minutes, but as Miron Muslic said in his post-match interview, the expected goals of Norwich were very slim, as he put it, and I think he's right for all their, good build-up play and good pressure in that last 20 minutes. In the last 20 minutes, first 20 minutes, to say, the back three stood resolute and they didn't really break us down. And then we counter up the other end, our first little good phase of play of the game. And Adam Randall puts what I can only describe as an absolutely delightful dinked pass over the top to Ryan Hardy. Ryan Hardy did the Ryan Hardy thing of, do you think, he's just held on to it too long, he should have shot, come on, shoot. And then he does shoot and it goes in the corner. How many times have we seen him do that over the years? We should probably stop doubting him at this point. And then the second goal is a lovely move, quote, in the transitions, unquote, as Miron would say. I think it's Houghton that picks it up, lays it off to Hardy. Hardy does, well, what turned out to be a 1-2 with Bundu. I'm not sure it was initially intended as a 1-2. I think Bundu had a sight of goal that he didn't quite shoot at, but then when that sort of window to shoot closes, where the defender closes in, he keeps his head, he doesn't panic, he finds Hardy back again, and Hardy slots it home for his second and Argyle's second goal. And at that point, Norwich are really falling apart, by the way. Yeah, Richard has asked what are the chances of my voice lasting the pod. I think you have to accept I just permanently have a cough and cold now. It's my hectic lifestyle. It's not going away, is it? Anyway, we have the corner that Katic, for once, it's a really good delivery into the box. We don't have many good corners. That was a good one. And Katic just nicks it wide of the post. We have another good transitionary moment involving Obafemi and Hardy that I think we just don't quite find the right moment to shoot. But again, we get into a really dangerous position. And we're really, really on top of the game at this point. And we kind of almost didn't want, even though we were winning, we didn't want halftime to come because we were really knocking on their door. Could have got a third goal. Obviously didn't in the end. We come out after the second half. I think it's like 50 minutes in. Here we go. It's a bit sloppy from Such, we have to say. He let Sargent go completely in the box. Sorinola tries to get in front of him, but he's too much of a chance at goal. Very difficult.
Sam, not willing to throw you under the bus here, but your exact words in the group chat when the goal went in was saying, that's amateurish.
Yeah, well, I do think it was a little bit sloppy from Such. One negative moment in an otherwise good performance. I think he just whether it's the start of the half, he's caught napping a bit. He just lets Sargent completely go. Sorinola tries to get across the cover, but it's too late at that point, and he just slots it past Hazard at the near post. Hazard actually does well to almost get to it, and even though it's near post, it's very short range and it's a good finish, so can't blame the keeper. Like just one sloppy moment, which I'm sure will probably come up in the video review constructively. But so easily after that, you'd have thought Norwich could really fall. We could really fall apart. Norwich could throw pressure at us. That we really stood firm at that point. We didn't let them have many or any more big chances. I don't think. I think we had one where it was technically cleared off the line, but it was kind of bobbling about a bit in the box. It wasn't really a what I would ever call a clear sight of goal for one of their players. And then towards the end of the game, we actually looked more likely to get a third, I think, than they did to get an equaliser. I've seen a lot of comments coming up saying that maybe I should praise Sargent more than criticise the defence. You know what? Fair enough. It was a very good finish. Great bit of skill and lovely finish, like I say, even though it was near post. He didn't give Hazard much of a chance. I do still think that it was a little bit lax on him in terms of the marking, but both things can be true, I guess. It was slightly sloppy defending, but also a very good goal from him. But yeah, we had our chances. Hardy had two quite big ones in the second half. There was the counter-attack that he just sort of fired wide of the goal, and then there was the lovely cross-in from, I think, Bundu. I've not actually watched that one back, but he's just, from Bundu, thank you, Adam, where he stretches across the face of goal and just doesn't quite get his foot on it. So, again, we probably look more likely, in truth, to get a third than they did to get an equaliser, so you can't say fairer than that when you're winning. I think kind of all the reasons I said Norwich might be a good fit for us stylistically did turn out to be the case. I think Norwich overplayed it. They were very complacent. I think there was a bit of an attitude of some of their players that they just had to turn up and they'd walk past Argyle. Not the case at all. And I think we punished them. We made them suffer for that. But I do also think we were good. I think there were some adaptations we made. I think certain players playing in their best position. I won't spoil from the one player segment, but I think we all know who I mean by that. A certain player who's played in his best position for the first time in about 14 months, coincidentally had probably his best game in about 14 months. So that was a big part. Again, Adam Randall in the middle of the midfield. It's always funny how we go back to Randall and Houghton, isn't it? Every time we always try and play about with it and experiment with it, but we keep going back to Randall and Houghton, and it keeps getting results whenever we do. Fair play for that. And I just think really encouraging performance. We are still very, very, very much outsiders to survive, I think. I know people say, it's only 4 points, but let's not forget we need to make up 5 points with the goal difference. And even if we win the next 2 games, obviously that's 6 points, which, let's be honest, in itself is unlikely. We're playing Swansea, we're playing Sheffield United. But even if, let's say, we do win both those 2, if a couple of other results go against us, we could be still sat there in 22nd, even after 3 wins in a row. So I'm not going to start even thinking about it yet, to be honest, but I still think the odds are hugely stacked against us. But I think I said before the Watford game, this is an 8-game audition for next season to see who should still be here next season of the players and even Tim Hatton of the head coach. And I think of those 2 games of the 8 so far, really good, decent performance at Watford, good performance yesterday, and deserved win.
Sam, take a break, get a glass of water or something. We'll come back to you in a minute. I'll let the 2 other lads go first. Richard Sloman, one of the YouTube comments that came in very early on. By the way, do get your comments and questions in. As always, we do show as many as we can. We do get to a question time a little bit later on. Richard said, I thought that I ditched the football for the GGs. Well, I did miss yesterday's game, full disclosure. But thankfully, due to the powers of Argyle TV, I have seen a full match replay this afternoon. So I am well versed as to what we are talking about. And thankfully, Sam has filled us in. James, off the back of the international break, we've seen a really encouraging performance at Watford. I think I probably saw it a little bit differently to most of the guys last week. And, you can't deny that it was clinical and ruthless yesterday. More importantly, are we starting to see a little bit of an evolution in Muslic's style of play?
Yeah, I think we are, but I think you've also got to look at it from some important context of how poor we were without Hardy and Randall. And when we've managed to get those 2 pieces of the puzzle back into the starting 11, I don't think it's surprising that we're kind of obviously seeing improved performances. I think what we've seen in a way is a sort of constant evolution, but it looks quite patchy because of those aforementioned injuries really disrupted our rhythm, disrupted our style of play. And I think there is only really a core starting 11 with a couple of extra sort of variables in them, mostly at the back, that really get the system, really can actually play the way Muslic wants to. And up top, that is basically Hardy and Bundu, and in the middle, Randall and increasingly Houghton. So I think we are seeing an evolution. I think we're seeing it's a bit more pronounced because we're getting these two of our best players, probably our two best players, back into the 11. But I think obviously Muslic came in and started with the brief of tightening up at the back, which we saw initially. Obviously, after that, there was a rocky start that sort of came to a head in the first 45 against Burnley. But since then, we've obviously seen the defensive structure, as he likes to call it, making us hard to play through. And I think for a while, especially again heightened by the Hardy absence, particularly, that we haven't seen the attacking output, we haven't seen the attacking patterns, and it's looked pretty poor on the eye. Obviously, the last two games we've managed to get everyone back together, and I think we're starting to see perhaps phase 2 of the Muslic attacking plan, which is obviously a bit more on the ground, a bit more cohesive. And I think that's probably what I like to think, and we should, 2 games don't make a great sample size, and being fooled into false dawns before, but starting to feel that and I'm sure we'll touch more on this later as we go through our players, that we're actually starting to see a more of a realistic blueprint of what Muslic ball is about, and perhaps how it will go forward, probably in League One, hopefully still in the Championship.
Well, yeah, exactly. Adam, we also shouldn't lose sight of the significance around this as an independent result, though, should we? Because it's our first win since Portsmouth, but really weirdly and totally uncharacteristically of Plymouth Argyle, it's our first win at home park in almost 2 months, which seems crazy when you think we essentially won 3 in a row against West Brom, Liverpool and Millwall, but we haven't won a game at home park since Millwall. It's so on Argyle, isn't it?
It's quite remarkable and quite unlike us, aside from perhaps this period last season under Ian Foster. But let's try and forget about that in a hurry. Yeah, it's whether it's significant or not in terms of where we end up this season. I'll be honest, it probably isn't going to be. We're probably going to go down anyway. I'd like to think I'm wrong. But I think the significance we have in this is kind of twofold. Is A, everybody likes to win. It was a lovely spring afternoon in the sun. We got a victory in front of our own supporters for the first time in a little while. It was very pleasing. And yeah, that's something that in the Championship, particularly this season, we haven't had a lot of. As Sam's mentioned, it's our 8th league win of the campaign. This is something pretty significant. But I think second and more importantly, it's a really positive sign as to what could be to come next season. 90% likelihood, I guess, is fair that it'll be in League One. But what this will have done is given the supporters and the head coach a lot of indication as to how this can work. And I think that's perhaps been slightly forgotten in recent weeks because, as you say, Joe, we've very rarely won a home game. I think there's some players there who have come to the fore in a very, very positive way. Players who are very clearly showing that they'll be able to have a very good impact next season, no matter where we end up, and a head coach there who's come off the back of 2 very positive performances. James was talking about the evolution in how we're playing and how getting the Hardy and Randall back is particularly important. Hey, the transfer window is a long time, but imagine Hardy and Randall being in League One. It could be terrific to watch on a lot of occasions, and it's good to get that positive vibe back again, which I know has been has been lacking, and to be fair, lacking for very good reason. I think it would be a bit strange if we would come on, say, after the Burnley game, for example, and say, put our fingers in our ear and say, yes, absolutely fine. Of course it wasn't. But this is a nice change. It's nice to be going on with. I don't necessarily subscribe to the view that the form at the end of the season is going to reflect the form at the start of the season. There's a lot that can happen, as I say, over the transfer window. It's a long time to keep the momentum going, if you want to put it like that. But what these wins absolutely can do is, as I say, give us an indication and give us something to hang our hat on going into what's undoubtedly going to be a busy summer. There are some players who have played their way into the plans very well. There are others, perhaps, who have, let's say, been left out recently, and how can I put this less harshly than I could? Who perhaps haven't been missed as much as they perhaps would have thought they'd like to have been. There's a couple of names absent from the squad yesterday who we'll perhaps mention, that I think have done quite the opposite of playing themselves into the squad for next season and could be looking at a summer elsewhere. So it goes both ways. But I think for the 11 and the subs that played yesterday, the style of play, which I think we got another reminder that can be very positive and can be very exciting to watch. It's got to be a good sign, and if I guess if we can get more afternoons like that between now and the end of the season, we might achieve the impossible. But even if we don't, it certainly can't hinder us to be winning games like this and getting more indicators of what could work for us in the months and years ahead.
What would be nice, James, is before we come on to our individual player praise, is what would be nice is if teams could be just as generous in gifting goals as Norwich were yesterday. I mean, last year it was 6. Yesterday it was 2 absolute. Well, the first one in particular is comical from their point of view. The fact that 2 centre halves stop. My immediate reaction when I saw the highlights last night was, well, Hardy's about 10 foot offside. But since there is an angle that suggests that Hardy may well have actually got himself back onside and is so clever to do so, he's at least marginally offside, if anything. It's not as clear cut as it would seem on the first replay.
The left centre back is playing them on. I'm absolutely sure of it. The left centre back is playing them on. Hardy just times the run perfectly, but when the ball is played, he's on. I'm sure of it.
But James, I mean, it was a gift in that sense, and the second goal has come from their throw-in, which is in relatively calm waters for them. And that, talking about the evolution of Muslich's football, that was a high win, wasn't it? That was a win high up the pitch from an attacking sense, and we capitalised. And something we haven't done very often this season is be ruthless and clinical.
Yeah, they weren't. You wouldn't be happy as a Norwich fan, but I don't think you'd be happy with it as a Millwall fan. If you look at the 5 we put past them that day, they were all absolutely shocking goals from a aesthetic perspective, but they were all sort of devastating turnovers and with transitions as they like to be called, that win the ball up high, and we've actually playing to our strengths. So I thought that I must have watched the sort of Randall chip dinked ball over to Hardy 50 times a day. Definitely onside. I think he's in line with the 2 centre backs he's next to, but I think there's I don't know if it's a centre back or their left back jogging back. I think it's keeping him about a yard on. But I think that's what Muslich ball is about, and I think it sort of exemplifies why Hardy's so important, because he seems to be the only one who really gets it. Like I guess we've seen that passage of play so many times, it's just ended up as some kind of just falling into the keeper's arms or running out of play. But that immediate recycled ball back into the mixer, and Hardy just anticipating it and therefore leaving his markers cold. It's almost a little bit like the Liverpool got, where the ball sort of gets recycled back into JB, who then flicks, and then the ball gets handled. So is that kind of like I think always come back to that team sort of video of the huddle when I think it was actually for the Millwall game, where Randall saying play forward, play forward and get forward. So, immediately make a straight, pass upfield and everyone get after it. That's just the sort of purest expression of a Muslic ball, where it's just, just get it in there. So yeah, it's kind of like I feel like the hallmarks of Muslic ball is to sort of criticize the opposition and say, oh, weren't we lucky that they were so stupid in that moment? But I think there's also great awareness. That's a tactical plan coming to fruition. Like Randall knew what he was doing, where he was supposed to be putting the ball. Hardy was expecting it, and if Arsenal had scored that, everyone would be it would be on repeat on Sky News. So I think we do a lot of groups. I mean, we do ourselves down all the time, but I think it's two great pieces of play. The Hardy finish for the second one was absolutely exceptional. The way it finishes outside, starts outside of the post and curls in. The pass as well, sublime for Bundu to put him in. So yeah, I think we should celebrate these bits of play because they're starting to show that where we're dangerous and starting to sort of show the way things may possibly go.
Sam, let's get on to player praise then, and I'll come to you, providing your voice is up to it. I know exactly who you want to talk about, but surely you only want to talk about him because he's from Plymouth. It's the only reason.
Yeah, I would love to talk very positively about Adam Randall, who I've always have consistently said we are much better when he's in the side than without. He does have some games where he maybe overplays slightly. I think at Watford, there were a couple of times he tried that sort of raking crossfield pass and just overplayed it. And it went out for a throw-in. I get that maybe, he can be a bit frustrating for some people. I think what he brings in his good moments is so much more than the frustrating moments. I'm just going to angle my light slightly differently because it's shining onto me. Anyway, that being said, I think what even his critics can agree, even if we maybe disagree about how often this happens, is when he's on it, he's really, really on it. And yesterday he was on it. Not only that dink across over the top, which I think was, unless I'm forgetting anything obvious, I think probably one of the best assists we've seen at Home Park in recent years, and maybe even the assist of the season, if that's a category. If not, it should be. Really lovely assist, and I don't think he's just floating into the area as well either. I think he's spotting the run and he's pretty much put it on a sixpence for him. So that was a sublime ball over the top. Another real good moment for him is when there's that counter attack from I think a corner, and he just gets back and there is a attacker right on his shoulder. There's another attacker a bit to the side breaking with him, and so easy. He can go one of two ways. He can either just underhit it or not get the ball, in which case the attacker's one-on-one with Hazard. He can overhit it too much so it goes out for a corner, or maybe even an own goal, or he can just try and slice it out for a throw-in. But then that's difficult because his body's angled away from the touchline, so he's in a really tough position as to what he does. But he gets in front of him, he holds the attacker off, and he gets the perfect weight on it to play it back to Hazard. And like I say, if he messes that up, it's a 1v1 opportunity. So really good in the defensive sense, really good in the attacking sense as well. His leadership on the pitch, I think, is becoming more and more noticeable with every passing game. I think he's grown into that captain's armband like a fish to water, if I'm not mixing my metaphors too badly there. And I think even at Watford, even when he has maybe one of his a little bit more frustrating games, I still think you can see the positive influence on the players around him, because as well as having the ambitious passes, he does also have those simple passes just to keep possession very well, recycle possession, just give us a little bit more time. He's really, really spatially aware in terms of who's pressing him. He always knows how much time he's got on the ball and how much time he doesn't have. And having that calmness, that composure, is one of those things that I think maybe goes a little bit under the radar, but is worth a great deal. He makes the players around him play better because he's not making silly mistakes. He's not, causing counter transitions. He's just a really solid, reliable player for this system and any system. And yesterday, he created a brilliant goal as well.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Adam, I don't know about you. The only thing that could probably make Sam's voice any worse now is tequila. Who do you want to talk about?
I've seen Sam down in these circumstances, and I think tequila could only be an improvement at this point. So knock yourself out, Sam. Honestly, yeah.
It's almost like a talk for a living, isn't it? It's almost like I have a job that involves talking.
Yeah, all the best, all the best. Yeah, it's going to be one for our, thank goodness, left wing back, Ballymumba. Oh, it's so great to see him in his favourite position again. I know we've been talking about how long it's been since we've seen him there and how long it's been since we've seen him perform like that. I know someone in this group who'll correct me if I've got the date wrong. But is that not a year to the day exactly since he played at left wing back against Rotherham United and scored?
Yeah, I think it is. And I was trying to calculate in my opening gambit how long it had been, and then the only thing I'm thinking is, did he maybe play there in some of the games later that season as well?
He probably did. He probably did. Don't get me wrong. But yeah, it's just very nice to see him a year later, having flourished in that position, do so again. Look, I think I can understand totally where Miran Muslic is coming from, wanting a left footer on the left and a right footer on the right. I remember painstakingly watching England throughout the Euros with no left side at all, with a right footer at left back and a right footer on the left wing, and it pretty much gave us so few options when going forward until we eventually got something in that place and managed to luck our way to the final. I could speak for a while about England. I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to talk about is the fact that I get it. But when you've got a player as good as Ballymumba in that position, you cannot ignore it. You cannot, try to work your way around it. You can't try to say, "Oh, we're going to develop the system slightly this way," and he'll pick it up. You've got to use him to his best, because we know from him being at Plymouth Argyle for the best part of 3 years now, when Ballymumba's at his best, it doesn't matter what the level is. He's such a tough customer to deal with for any defence when he's coming forward. The way that he yesterday would turn with the ball, would cut inside onto his right, not necessarily on the way going forward, but in the way of completing the dribble, completing that turn, and to get Argyle up the pitch from that left side, was seriously impressive. I like as well. I don't necessarily feel like it should be the exact reason he's starting for what I've stated, but I liked the idea of Muslic thinking a little bit, not necessarily out of the box, but the fact that he's saying things like, "Oh, we wanted him to play because it's against his former club, because it's got a little bit of a point to prove." It shows he's thinking, and it shows that he's trying to come up with these new ways to threaten our opponents. And to be honest, I think we're at a stage now where he's perhaps stumbled upon it, but it needs to carry on now. I want to see Ballymumba line up at left wing back against Swansea. I want to see Ballymumba line up at left wing back against Sheffield United, or regardless of who we're playing. Maybe we'll accidentally play Wednesday again, and he can play in that one. So, I want to see him at left wing back as much as possible, because he is our best left wing back at the club, even though he's right footed. We've spoken a lot about what Puach offers, who I think started very well and has gone back slightly. Nathaniel Better, what he offers, probably gone the opposite way, starting very poorly and starting to come into his own. But neither of them really are in Bally's league, especially when he's at his best, especially with the way that he played yesterday. And we've got. I'll come back to the point earlier. It's unlikely that this 6-game run that we've got between now and the end of the season is going to change anything about which league we end up in next season. But if it is, we've got to get plenty of wins on the board, and one way to do that is to get Ballymumba involved. When he's at his best, he's a match for anyone, and yesterday he absolutely was. The fact that he's doing it from the left wing back position is absolutely no coincidence to me.
No, I absolutely agree, and it's clear that maybe he was one of the players who struggled initially when Muslic came in, just to adapt to how things were going to be. But I think now you're right. We maybe we're starting to see him flourish back in his natural position. James, I don't have anything to tee you up with your player, but it's somebody who perhaps may well have gone under the radar yesterday, and almost certainly with his effort at Watford as well.
Yeah, I guess it's a player I've picked out from the Watford game and the Norwich game is Michael Obafemi, and I think Sam specifically on the last pod talked up how he possibly had the best game in an Argyle shirt against Watford. I thought it was brilliant, that game, and I saw elements of that yesterday as well. I think for the context of why I want to talk to him is obviously for a while under Muslich, he's not even been getting in the squad. He sort of made an appearance and then couldn't get in even a spot on the bench. We don't really know the reason for that, especially when we were so short of attacking options under Muslich, and when Hardy was out, Obafemi nowhere to be seen. Whether that was an attitude thing, a training thing, not seeing the application or the numbers that he wants to see, and he's hinted that there's some similar numbers of or output, I think was the word, while why Al Haj isn't getting a look in at the moment. But then Obafemi's been chosen as part of that front three, and I'm looking at someone who's part of a brilliant press, especially against Norwich, running hard as part of that unit. I saw him at Watford and in the Norwich game, chasing back, winning balls. The passing range that he was on show in the Watford game, I didn't realize he had that in the locker. He was spraying, cutting balls through for Hardy, spraying passes out wide, recovering the ball, recycling it, tidy on the ball all the time, really making efforts to track back, really putting the yards in the press. It looks like, I think if you look at the second goal, the sort of his off the ball, almost out of picture celebrations, look like someone who's really invested in a club. And this is a loanee playing for basically a relegated team, and also someone who hasn't even been getting a look in the matchday squad, and is now looking, for me, first pick on the left of the three. No, he started in the middle of the three today for tactical reasons, and that was switched up, and we sort of came alive as that switch was made. So for me, Obafemi on the left, Bundu through the middle, and Hardy on the right just seems the best front three we have right now. But and also feel like we're just to link our players together. Anyone who's playing left wing back needs or will benefit from a runner running beyond the last man, stretching play ahead of them, and that's what Obafemi brings with his pace, and the way that defenders fear him. So I think, if we are going to do anything for these last few games, then I think Obafemi's a big part of that, and it's just interesting to see that, to see the how invested he is on the pitch, the performances over the last two games, and then you're wondering, where this has been all season, really.
Absolutely. Now, you've probably noticed that it's now my turn, and we are yet to mention honourable mentions for Connor Hazard, Julio Pleguezuelo, Nikola Katic, Mustafa Bundu all deserve honourable mentions, but the lads have very kindly given me the platform, and I'm going to climb up onto my hill. I'm going to climb up and I'm going to hold up my banner. Serves you right, all of you folk who have mocked Ryan Hardy during his time at Plymouth Argyle. Let me just give you a bit of context here. Ryan Hardy, by my basic mathematics, is only 3 appearances away from breaking into the top 50 in Plymouth Argyle's history. He is 1 appearance away from matching David Norris's appearance tally for Plymouth Argyle. He is now, where's my list gone? He is now 14th on Plymouth Argyle's all-time leading goal scorer charts. He is now only 9 goals away from breaking into the top 10 of Plymouth Argyle's goal scorers of all time. He has got 9 in his last 8. He has got 6 in his last 5 at home park. This guy is a Plymouth Argyle legend. We all talk about how Joe Edwards has been a part of the journey from the beginning of the Ryan, basically from the beginning of the Hallett era, if you like. Hallett, from that season in League Two with Ryan Lowe, Hardy came in the January. Obviously, Joe Edwards came in the June. Hardy has been with us since the January, and he's gone on every step of that journey with us. He has been a part of this move to the Championship, and he is absolutely worth his weight in gold. at championship level for Plymouth Argyle. The guy genuinely, I run out of superlatives for him because he's got everything that a natural finisher at this level needs. He's got that pace. He's got the intelligence, as we were talking about earlier, to get himself onside in a situation that you wouldn't have given anybody a chance to get onside, to be honest, with how quick the play was moving. He got himself onside, ran off the shoulder, had the composure to bring the ball down and to put it beyond the keeper. Yes, we've seen so many occasions where he's dithered and he's waited and he's perhaps tried to be too cute with it. But how many crucial goals down the years since Ryan Hardy joined the football club in that January has he scored? You think back to those goals at Carlisle, at Salford, those goals in League One, in that first half of that League One season in particular. Then you think about the Championship last season and that wonderful run he was on going into Christmas before it all went wrong after that Cardiff game. You think this season alone, the Liverpool moment. You think of all these priceless moments that Ryan Hardy has given us. The goal that essentially won us the derby back in League One under Schumacher on Sky on Halloween as well. Those 2 late goals to win that Devon derby for us. He's, Sam, we debated this the other night about whether or not he's going to go down as a legend or not. You've got a different perception to I, or a little bit more of a criteria. I personally think that when Ryan Hardy's time comes to leave Plymouth Argyle, and I do hope it's a couple of years down the line yet, I certainly believe there's no desire on his side to leave the football club. You can see with how he talks, how he celebrates and things, he is very much at home here in Plymouth. I know for a fact that he will be in the top 10 of Argyle's goal scoring charts. He will be comfortably inside the top 50 in the appearance charts. This guy is a legend. We talk about Joe Edwards being a legend. Ryan Hardy is right up there in those modern day greats that Plymouth Argyle have had. And of course, not every player can be praised. Not every player will be liked by every supporter, but the general consensus has got to be that this guy now is absolutely worth his weight in gold in Plymouth Argyle folklore in this modern era. And I, for one, am happy to sit on the bandwagon when he's on this streaky run of no goals in 15, 16 games, however long it was at the start of this season, and keep defending him with my tin hat. But it just makes the run that he's on now even more special. And let's be fair, he is going to be absolutely crucial to our run-in if we are going to pull off one of the greatest escapes the Championship's ever seen. I wasn't on last weekend, obviously, and my little tuppence on that is it perhaps makes it just a little bit more frustrating that he has all this quality and he was the man who was substituted towards the end of that game. If anybody was going to get us a goal at Watford, it was going to be Ryan Hardy. That's my piece on Ryan Hardy. You've all heard it before. I will repeat it again, I'm sure, between now and future episodes. But Ryan Hardy is a legend. He is a Plymouth Argyle legend. I'm seeing all the comments. I'm going to show them when I'm stopped talking because I can't multitask. But I think it's safe to say Ryan Hardy will always have a piece of Plymouth Argyle in his heart. Is there anything else we want to touch upon on yesterday's games, chaps? I'm not actually, for once, I think we've been doing this podcast for nearly 3 years, Sam, is it? We're coming up to, since we resurrected the podcast, something like that.
Certainly, yeah. It was the Burton Adrian Mariappa game, I think, might have been that was the first one I did. I think there might have been one or two before that, but it was it was 2.5 years.
In that time, I don't think I've ever sat on here and in that time, I don't think I've ever sat on here and praised Gavin Ward. And I kind of feel like I'm getting the shakes just thinking about doing it, but fair is fair. I actually thought there was an imposter wearing a Gavin Ward suit on the pitch yesterday. I teed myself up. I'd written loads of things down that I could use to berate Gavin Ward with, but I can't. Anything on yesterday's game then, lads, before we take some questions and look ahead to Swansea?
Oh, Sam, you going, or shall I go, or who's going?
Yeah, well, it was just a quick one. I think what I would say is, as well as it being a massively improved Ward, I want to just pick up on something that James said, a comment coming in from superintendent saying my audio's a bit weird, either that or I'm poorly. I don't think it's my audio. I think I've just got a sore throat. There may be a little bit of background noise from elsewhere in the house, but primarily it's my sore throat, I think. What was I saying? Picking up on what James said about the adaptation of Muslich ball. I think that what we're seeing now, and don't get me wrong, it is still direct. It's still very much, it's not much playing out from the back or passing around the back. But I think what we're seeing now is quick, what I would call targeted transitions to feet. It's not just what we did see in some of the games like Hull, Sheffield Wednesday, Cardiff, Luton, even in some games where we were successful, like West Brom and Liverpool, although we did finish very well and we did defend magnificently. What I think was maybe the problem in the early Muslich era in terms of how we were going forward was some of the time it was just long balls in the air and then compete. And I think whether it's down to the fact that, so charitably, it was always the plan to play this way and the players are only just learning how to adapt it. Perhaps slightly less charitably, Muslich has kind of realised this is a bit too one-dimensional, we need to tweak it. Maybe the truth is somewhere between the two. But however it's played out, what we're now seeing is far more targeted transitions to feet, far more what I would call good direct rather than just aimless direct football. And that whilst it's still perhaps not, my idealistic style of play, at the same time, I'm not a complete purist. I'm not a complete, ideologue. That was very enjoyable to watch. And if we can keep on playing in such a way and getting results, then I think there's going to be no complaints about the style of play, because it was certainly much better, much more cohesive. Again, slight caveat that Norwich played into our trap a bit, but then as James pointed out, maybe that's because we drew them into playing into our trap of how good we were out of possession. So, I don't know where I'm really going, but only to say that I did call on Muslich to adapt, and I think he absolutely has adapted. Not that I'm taking credit for it, obviously, but I think, but it's fair that if I criticise him for something, I praise him when he, does the opposite of the thing I was criticising him for. So I'm going to give a big word of praise to Miran Muslich. Yeah, actually, sorry, I'm hogging the mic. Kevin Jones, JB was very good when he came on. Yes, he was. I don't say that very often, but he was really good. He pretty much everything he did right. There may have been one time that he overpressed a bit too much. And that was, one little moment. But off the ball, he was really good. Covered a lot of ground, harried players, picked the right pass at the right times. He was on for a good length of time as well. It wasn't just a short cameo. He was on for a good third of the game. And I think that was a much improved performance. So whatever, proverbial rocket was put, somewhere or other in the last week, let's hope it stays there, because 10 times better for him.
Adam, did you have something you wanted to raise very quickly? Because I've got a question lined up ready to go for James. So,
well, I did, and it's a remarkable coincidence. It's a comment that's just on screen from Accidental Pilgrim there about Soranola's free kick. We had this conversation last week, actually, with regards to who our best set piece takers may be, and I wonder if you guys or anyone has any views on that. Soranola, don't get me wrong, I love the guy. That is one of the worst set pieces I have ever seen taken. I like to think I'm safe enough. I am in block 3. I like to think I'm safe enough with the distance back I am. I wasn't from there. I had to take a little bit of evasive action, which may be cowardly instead of getting my head on the ball. It wasn't his finest hour. I just wonder, with the set piece coach in place and the fact that we have, and Soranola himself has genuinely taken some very good set pieces, most notably, obviously, for Maxi at the Etihad. But do we still have a little bit of work to do there, perhaps?
Yeah, I think Kevin. Sorry, Sam. I just want to jump in quickly. Kevin Jones has got it spot on for me. I think with all the evidence I've seen, Mustafa Bunda is overwhelmingly the man who should be taking all free kicks for Plymouth Argyle. Certainly those that are within shooting range, anyway.
It may have been the worst free kick. Anybody who remembers the Jake Jervis corner at Wembley, it was definitely not the worst set piece.
We narrow it down to
one. That's going back to very heady heights. Jake Jervis at Wembley. if we had a ref watch that day, I'd have got the show cancelled because I'm still adamant we should have had a penalty in the 83rd minute that day. You may have noticed from how I do the hosting chair that I've not taken in Passotti's man of the match poll. That's quite simply because it's an overwhelming one-sided landslide in favour of Ryan Hardy. 90 votes went to Ryan Hardy, 39 to Adam Randall. There were honourable votes collected for Julio Pleguezuelo and Nikola Katic. But the comments generally are on the gist of what we were saying. And just on top of what you added there, Sam, on your piece, Green Flash on Passotti did say, best he's seen JB play all season. Perhaps that's, maybe this is his role at the moment. We talk about, Muslic talks about finishers and game changers off the bench. Maybe that's where JB is going to be most effective, or can be effective on this run-in, because as you say, no matter what combination we try and force, it always seems that Randall and Houghton just works, no matter what league we appear to be in. James, I want to come to you because you put up a very interesting post on X yesterday in terms of our performance and results against the amount of possession that opposition teams have against us. Because this was heavily stacked in Norwich's favour, 75-25. We've seen huge swings in recent games. I mean, Liverpool was 81-19, wasn't it, by the end of the game or something? And we obviously know how that ended up. Why don't you, Phyllis, put a bit more meat on the bones on that one?
Yeah, I've had this for a few weeks now, where I noticed that every, not necessarily even wins, but every good Muslic Argyle performance has very low possession. I managed to sort of put that number around 25%. If we've got 25% possession, we're good. And yesterday was 24%. I think the Watford game was around 25%. And I actually came across this theory in the Derby game. Ahead of the Derby game, I looked up what Derby's possession was when they won, and their previous 3 wins had been come with less than 30%. I actually thought, this is interesting. Like, I actually think this is not going to go well for us, and it didn't. The exception slightly to that rule is the Millwall game, which was actually, we managed to have a lofty 36. I actually should write the numbers down, but it was around 36% possession. So, and I think not only you've obviously got that statistic. We play well with very low amounts of possession. Whenever we have had more of the ball, or as equal measures of the ball, have been the extremely poor games under in that group of so-called 6-pointers we had, where we put in extremely poor, lackluster performances against the teams around us. So I thought, let's have Portsmouth. We had 20% possession, and they're one of the lowest possession teams in the league. So I had a quick look at who were the possession teams, and the nice thing is that we're going to play most of them in the next 6 games. So Leeds have averaged 61% possession. Swansea are next, second with 58.8% possession. Norwich were third. Then there's Burnley, Middlesbrough, Coventry, West Brom, Watford, and then Sheffield United. So of most of our last games are mostly against the 9 teams who have got the most possession. Now, there are outliers. As I said, the lowest possession team on average in the league is Portsmouth. So you might say that was an outlier. But as I say, we managed to dupe them into having 80% possession in that game. So effectively, we haven't really lost a game where we haven't enjoyed any possession of the ball. So if you really, really want to squint and look at some a little bit of positivity and let the hope kill you once again, it's that the run of games coming up are against teams that are going to should want to have the ball, and that is going to suit us. And the next game, to bridge into the next part of the pod, is the second highest average possession team in the Championship, Swansea.
So what you're saying is the only game, all these people who moan when we give the ball away and the opposition get hold of the ball, actually what that is, that's a positive thing for our end result and overall performance.
I don't want to correlate or causation, but effectively, if we have the ball, we suck.
Where are Preston, incidentally, on that list? Do you have that available to you?
I have to look at my screenshot.
Because right now, that's the only game I'm choosing not to watch, it seems, because it seems like every other one might be worth watching.
Preston are 14th in the league.
Oh, okay. Maybe we can double bluff them as well.
Just to quickly leap in on that, I actually think there's some validity to that under Miron we are far more comfortable playing a counter-attacking style than we are trying to play build-up play. That's very much clear to everyone, I agree, but maybe there's an aspect of that being reverse-engineered, that in the games in which we do take an early lead, going back to Graham's good old point he always makes about scoring the first goal, which again yesterday came true, but in those games in which we do take the lead, we do tend to sit back a bit more and almost not invite, but be very happy and very comfortable to let them be in possession. And due to that game phase, like you said, maybe a little bit of causation as well as, correlation as opposed to causation. And equally, in the games like Hull and Sheffield Wednesday, where we did go behind early, and even Derby when we were 2-0 down for a lot of it, they're then happy to do the opposite. They're then happy to let us try and keep hold of the ball and try and let us find a way of working it into the box. And obviously what so often happened in the whole game in Sheffield Wednesday game is we'd have about 4 or 5 passes along the back line, realise we weren't getting anywhere, lump it up the pitch and the ball would come straight back to us and the cycle would start again. So I do think there is an aspect that does show there are certain teams we fare well against. And as I, without wanting to blow my own trumpet too much, predicted on the last podcast, I said Norwich would be one of them. There is actually also reasonable evidence, without getting too excited, that Swansea may be one of them as well. So whilst I do think there are some sides we fare well against in that regard, it's also important to remember that probably is to an extent due to game state, and that if we're winning, we are going to let teams have the ball. So it's worth bearing that in mind, that we've got to actually get in front still to begin with.
Absolutely. Let's rattle through some questions then before we come to the Swansea preview in a second. Let's go to X, and Strictly Plymouth at Mrs. Foxtrot Whisk says, Adam, you can take this one. We haven't heard from you for a little bit. Looks like we fixed our defence, but moving up, what do we need to do in midfield to improve? Well, on the basis of how tonight's gone, we just need to keep playing Randall and Houghton, don't we?
Yeah, seems to be the way. Seems to always be the case, as Sam's mentioned for a number of years now, that whenever we seem to get into a quandary of our midfield, it's back to the old trusty of Houghton and Randall being in there. I think longer term, it would be a shame not to upgrade for Randall's partner. But I've been saying that forever. So what's another year, as Johnny Logan may say. I feel as though it's a little bit disappointing, actually. I don't really know what's going on with Malachi Boateng. I think either he's picked up an injury. I haven't heard if he has, and please jump in if we know that he has. But I think if we're being realistic and based on how our summer went, he was never really first choice, was he? We were linked with a number of central midfielders, and suddenly our link to Malachi Boateng broke on deadline day, and he signed a few hours later. So panic buy maybe, but I think regardless, he's not been considered instrumental to the plans, and Jordan Houghton, to his credit, evidently has. In terms of what we do going forward, I think making a purchase or a clever free transfer signing over the summer would be highly preferable. I know there's Hector Cipriano, who are linked with over the winter period, who I believe is out of contract, but I think will face some pretty stiff competition if he is indeed leaving Peterborough. But I think keeping Adam Randall actually is going to be key, and isn't necessarily a guarantee. He's been posting numbers this season that will have caught the eye of championship sides. We know he was linked with Swansea City. They won't be the only ones who have got their eyes on Adam Randall based on how he's playing and what he's been producing. And of course, if he does end up departing, if we go down, I think a lot of people will start to realise just what sort of impact he can have when he's at his best. One of those that would be conspicuous by their absence, if I can get my words out there. So ideally, I want to go into the next season with the midfield. Don't get me wrong, I want options. I can't just say we'll play the same two every week because of burnout purposes. But I'd absolutely love Adam Randall to stay, and I'd absolutely love somebody like Kyprianou to come in alongside him and provide that partnership that could end up providing an upgrade. And do you know what? Based on how it is, I'd absolutely no problem with Jordan Houghton staying around as well. Of course, if he does, then we've got the conversation of do we end up signing Darko JB on a permanent deal, which I know is like lighting blue touch paper in this podcast. So I won't do that. I'll just say that I think the building blocks are there. I just think one, maybe two more to get us into a really good place to challenge, no matter where we are.
Can I quickly jump in? I want to.
You're going to, so
yeah. No, this was literally 30 seconds. To the people in the comments, I've had a blinding flash eureka of why I'm sounding so bad. I have my AirPods in because I was listening to something before I went on and just kept them in, whereas I normally use my Mac mic, but I've had my AirPods in the whole time. Do I now sound a little bit clearer?
yes.
Right, that was why I have my AirPods.
No.
I'm really sorry, Aaron, for the edit on that.
By your standards, Sam, yes.
Yeah, I'm still a bit croaky, but the AirPods were a problem. So, yeah, sorry, Aaron, for the edit on that. And I'm glad you can all now hear me a bit clearer.
I get the sense our illustrious co-host will not be editing this, but we'll see how it goes. James, Josh Tucker asks, is it too late for the playoffs? Because right now it seems like nobody wants to go into that 6th spot in the championship. So they've all had a go at it, I think. Oh, you've muted yourself. Hang on. James, you've muted yourself. We can't hear you, James.
I said
Try again.
If we can keep our possession to under 10% for the rest of the games, then who knows?
Well, yeah, I mean, it might be possible looking at the types of teams we're going to come up against. Ninja Matt asks, can we not afford medical treatment for Sam yet? Unfortunately not, but if anybody would like to denote some throat lozenges or find us a sponsorship deal with Rennie's or something, then we'll quite happily take it on board. We can have Sam produce a 30-second advert for the mid episode if they need.
Don't get me wrong, I still am a little croaky, but I think the AirPods were 50 or 60% of the problem, so now a lot clearer, thankfully, I think.
You can all unmute yourself for this. We don't have to go into any great elaboration on this. Just a number will do from the three of you. Andrew Thomas on YouTube asks, how many of our loan players do you want to see next year, regardless of what league we are in? Feel free to just give a number of 0 to 5.
I feel I can't accept the premise of the question because it will be a higher number if we're in League One to if we're in the Championship. Oh, crikey. I forget who they even are. Obafemi, JB, Katic.
Tajani and Pukac.
Right, yeah. Yeah, like maybe 1 or 2. I don't know. Not a great deal, unfortunately.
James?
2.5.
2.5. Adam?
Yeah, I think 1, maybe 2, depending on circumstance.
Yeah, I'm going to be a little bit more ruthless. I'm only going to say 1, unless they're all involved in like really cheap wage contracts and free agents and things like that. But we can't foresee the future.
We're not going to be too negative on what's been a broadly positive pod. After Puac's first 4 or 5 games, we all thought, blimey, we've got a player, didn't we? But it's been all. He was all right at Pompey, but apart from that, it's been all downhill since then. And with how good Barley was, he's going to really struggle to find his way back in. So I think we probably won't be taking his option unless he rapidly improves between now and the end of the season. Whereas Obafemi, looking like we would probably have never really wanted to play him again when he was out of the squad, he's now actually played himself into contention. So there is still time for it to change.
Katic, we're forgetting Katic as well, who's a lone player.
Katic, for sure, if we're in League One. If we're in the Championship, I'm going to controversially say I think we can do a bit better. He's a real no-nonsense player. He's, like he's got a brick for a head. He gets his head on the end of everything, gets in the way of everything. I do feel for footballing brain and certainly for distribution, he's not quite up to the level we need. He is a blunt instrument, and in games like the Liverpool game, he's a very effective blunt instrument. But I do feel if we're transitioning our style a little bit, as we've alluded to, and I do feel that if maybe this investment is coming in, touch wood, and we if we stayed up, we wanted to push towards mid-table. I do feel we'd maybe want better. In League One, I think we could get away with having him, but in the Championship, I'm not convinced, I have to say.
I so hope that Sam finishes bottom of the predictions league, because the new forfeit is that Sam Down has to sit in a room with a locked door and tell Nikola Katic he's a blunt instrument and we can do better than him. I would pay a lot of money to a charity.
Blunt instrument was harsh, but I feel what I'm saying, like he's really, really good at what he's good at, but he's limited. If I'm being completely honest, blunt instrument is harsh, but he's a throwback, isn't he? Superintendent said he's like an old Warnock player. Richard Logan, before my time, that one, but I know what you're getting at. He's really good at what he's good at, but in terms of his perception of the game, I think there's been moments where he's been caught out, and I certainly think in terms of distribution, he's the weakest member of the back line, if I'm truthful. So look, he absolutely has some uses. I'm not going to deny that, but I feel if we did stay up, which to be clear, is still very unlikely. It's still in the single-figure percents in my book, but if we did stay up, I think we would ideally want a higher caliber. Sorry if that's harsh.
Need to get through a podcast without Sam being negative about the situation, don't we? Sam, stay unmuted. Would you like to retort our podcast colleague John Alsop here with, in order to qualify for a statue, Hardy will need to leave the club in disrespectful circumstances?
Silly questions get silly answers. Move on.
Feel free to say no comment if you wish.
No comment.
Very good. James, Adam, don't know whether either of you two know this or want to tackle it from Robin's Nest. Has anyone ever stayed up being bottom at this stage of the season? Wednesday and QPR last season were hovering above the line or were at least 22nd or 23rd. It does seem to me like it may actually end up being one of the Championship's, if not the Championship's, greatest ever escape if we manage to pull it off.
Yeah, I couldn't say for sure whether anyone survived. I genuinely don't know. But I'd certainly say it can't have happened very often, for sure. I mean, what I will say, of course, that last season Rotherham were a complete basket case, and I think we're already down at this point last year, which is pretty remarkable. So we're not in those sorts of dire straits. We have a much more competitive points total at this stage of the season, although of course it is a disappointing points total. There's no getting away from it. So we've got that, say, single figure or 10% chance, whatever it is, rather than nothing. But yeah, I can't imagine it's happened that regularly at all.
Muslich's Greens asks on X, do we know how long Hardy has on his contract? I think it's at least another year, maybe 2, isn't it? I don't know for sure.
I believe he signed 3 years the year we came up, so there'd be 1 more. But I don't know if there's an option there either. So it could be one of those classic contracts. But yeah, he's definitely not out of contract this summer for sure.
Sandra, if you're watching and you want to put our minds at rest, feel free to tell us how much longer Ryan's going to be in Plymouth. He won't have to buy a drink in the city if I have anything to do with it. James, one's just come in that I'll throw your way from Richier6. Do you think it's a bad idea that everyone else is playing on Tuesday and us playing on Wednesday? It gives us more pressure as we know what we need to do. I kind of think it will make our task is we're up against it anyway, aren't we? So regardless of what happens on Tuesday, it will make no difference. We have to win.
Yeah, you're probably right. At this point, we can only focus on ourselves and try and get a result. And yeah, I think the way I would see that question is from a recovery point of view. So we've got an extra day's recovery from the Norwich game, but we're an early kickoff against Sheffield United, and we're playing on Saturday, and we're playing on Wednesday. So we've not only got
a Luton Cardiff vibe, isn't it?
Yeah. So we've now got we're going into that. I don't know when Sheffield United are playing, whether they're playing Wednesday as well, but I would assume, potentially they've got an extra day's rest, and you can start measuring our kickoff on Saturday in hours. In fact, if you were a club playing in Europe in the Premier League, you wouldn't get scheduled for a early Saturday kickoff. So that's going to be problematic, I think, especially when we've got players such as Hardy seemingly playing on the edge of fitness, being nursed through injuries, and whether he's fully recovered from that, we're not sure. So I don't think psychologically we can get any worse. I think we're pretty much as bad as it gets from that point of view. We need to win. Don't think it really matters what day we play on from that respect. But from a performance perspective, I think that's a bit of a bum hand. The only good thing is we've got the extra day's rest from the Norwich game, and it's an away game. So yeah, not ideal, I don't think.
Just for context, and for those who may or may not know, Sheffield United play on Tuesday night, and they are at home to Mill. Right, an hour and 5 minutes in. Let's head over the Severn Bridge. We are travelling back to the scene of our first away win of last season as we go in pursuit of our second away win of this season, and we head to Swansea to take on managerless Swansea City. I don't think I've seen that are they keeping Alan Sheehan to the end of the season?
Yeah, they are.
Right, okay. And incidentally, in the I'm sure we've all seen the graphic on Twitter now that shows since Muslich came in that we're 14th in the division for form. Swansea are actually a side that are below us on that chart, Sam. I presume you will be spending your Wednesday evening in South Wales. What can we expect from our trip to Swansea?
Yeah, I would say with that Muslich 14th stat, we have played more games like all the teams below us. So on points per game, we're not quite as high as 14th. We're more like about 17th or 18th. But I do think still above Swansea. So yeah, I will indeed be in South Wales on Wednesday night. As I am touch wood, only got 3 more to go, and I will have attended all 46 away games across our 2 seasons in the Championship. So I'm not giving it up in a hurry. Yeah, I'll be there. It will be a reasonable-ish pickup time for once, with it being a relatively local game. Like I said earlier, I do think there are some indications that as Norwich were a stylistic good fit for us to play, so too might Swansea be. The difference is we are away from home. And Argyle away from home, yes, we are technically 2 unbeaten away from home, but throughout all our managers, we've never had a great record away from home, apart from oddly Ian Foster. He was the one exception somehow. Goodness knows how that happened. It could go one of 2 ways. There's a danger that they could just keep the ball and frustrate us and break us down and open us up, but there's also the chance they could overplay, leave themselves vulnerable on the counter attack, like Norwich did, and like even Watford did to some extent. I think we're going to see is it going to be a Norwich-Watford kind of game where it's possession for possession's sake and we cut through that, even though we didn't score at Watford, we had a number of chances, or is it going to be a Hull kind of game, or even a Luton kind of game, as much as we did score at Luton off a set piece, whereby they just open us up, dominate, create a lot of chances. So in terms of the performance, yeah, it's tough. I know I've kind of done the classic Sky Sports pundit thing of saying, oh, it could be this, it could be that, and I've kind of stayed on the fence, but it really does depend on look, we all know Swansea will have the most possession in the game, without a doubt. It all depends, I think, on whether that's penetrative possession or whether it's meaningless possession. That's going to partly depend on them and how good they are with the ball, but it's also going to depend on us, how good we are in our pressing, how good we are in the moments of transition, as Miran Muslich calls it. It really could go either way, and I'm quite excited to see, because for me, I'm still going into it relatively low pressure. For me, I still think we're very nearly down. Obviously, I give us a higher chance now than I did before Saturday. It would be stubborn and obstinate to do otherwise, but I still think the chances of survival are in the single digits for sure. So I'm not going into it particularly nervous. I'm going into it very much expecting that we are going to be in League One, hoping to see a good performance again that convinces me more and more that we are on the right track for next season. But then if we're 1-0 up in the 89th minute, then try telling me not to be nervous then, So we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, quite quietly confident we can cause them a few problems.
Adam P321 Man 1, regular in our questions section here on the podcast. Our same team for Wednesday. I'd imagine, providing there's no issues from yesterday. Obviously, we know Nikola Katic has come off with a bit of a hamstring query. You just stick with the same team, wouldn't you?
I'd say so. As you say, Joe, barring any fitness issues, barring any their fatigue where we may want to make one or two changes, I certainly wouldn't be doing it for the sake of it. Perhaps aside from, as you say, Katic with that injury, which I imagine would see Victor Paulsen in the centre of back three, which hey, you're certainly not going to hear me complain about. But yeah, it would make a lot of sense. It would make give us that consistency that we need to challenge. And in the circumstances that we are, and I think we can. I really think we can, and it's I think been well covered by everyone this evening. In terms of how Swansea like to play and how they will keep the ball, but they've really not been penetrative with it. Second stumble for much of the campaign. They certainly have a far lower figure for open play XG than Norwich did, and we seem to deal with them pretty comfortably. And yeah, if we're on form as much as well, I'll say it like this: if we play like we did against Norwich, I'll be very disappointed if we didn't beat Swansea. Obviously, there are much more variables to consider. The lesser rest periods, the fact that it's away from home, which tends to make quite a significant difference. Yeah, there's a lot to consider. But I go in quietly confident. I think they will be the sort of team who will struggle to break us down, particularly, by the way, since the January transfer window when they lost Matt Grimes. A surprising transfer, I think, going to divisional rivals in Coventry, although, of course, given how Coventry are playing, that's clearly an upgrade for him. I think he made them tick very well. I think he was unlucky not to have a little bit more the last time we were up there, when I think he did very well to control the game, and Swansea probably, certainly on chances created, should have got a bit more from it. I don't think they're that sort of team anymore. I really think we can get at them. I think their keeper Vigouroux has started the season brilliantly and has really struggled, actually, possibly since he was asked at Home Park. Those numbers have been coming right down for him. So I want to see us get some shots away. I want to see us test him, much in the same way we got shots away against Angus Gunn, who's another keeper who's posted some really poor shot stopping figures this year, and we got a couple of early goals past him. If we play to our best, we can do that again. We can get ourselves in front. We can soak up any pressure they've got, and we can come away with a victory in this game. But hey, it's one of those, of course, where, as Sam has rightly pointed out, in a way that football can go, it can very easily go the other way, and it could be very much a case of slightly after the Lord Mayor's show. I think one more point I will make on the lineup, circling back to what the question here actually was. The way that we had the issue, or the benefit, I guess, of Ballymumba lining up against his old club against Norwich. Michael Obafemi surely, therefore, likely to start again, perhaps with a bit of a point to prove against Swansea. Be interesting to see if he gets on the score sheet as a result.
Just going back to the point of the game there last season, yes, I do agree that whilst in some respects we played okay, we were defensive. We played well in some respects. We were very defensively well organised and very structured. I think there's no doubt that Swansea the better of the XG, and as well as having the best chant ever made in football by the Blackpool fans when he was on loan there, Charlie Patino is also indirectly to thank for Argyle's survival. Because if he put that 95th minute chance anywhere other than straight at Conor Hazard, we may not have been celebrating our first away win that day. In fact,
we might not have.
Most probably wouldn't have.
We also might have sacked Ian Foster a couple of weeks earlier as well.
Fair point. But thank you, Charlie Patino, for missing that last minute chance. I'm not sure my heart would have held it in the away end if he hadn't have done.
I can already hear that away end on Wednesday night saying Vic Paulsen's on fire and he's playing Ronald off the park. James, we're unbeaten in 2 on the road. Our last away game, we returned a clean sheet, which is obviously lesser spotted. We won on Saturday. Confidence must be high. What is your score prediction for Wednesday night? James?
Hello, I just had AirPod issues as well. It's not just Sam.
All right, okay. I was just saying that we're unbeaten in 2 on the road. We had a clean sheet in our last away game. We won on Saturday. Confidence will be through the roof. The hope is back. What's the score prediction going to be, and how would you rate our chances of survival now? What percentage chance are you giving it?
I'd give percentage chance of staying up even lower than our possession. So yeah, single figures. But I do think if we get a result at Swansea, I don't think you'd be able to stop me from dreaming that it's back on. So I am actually going to back an Argyle win just because it is the hope that kills you. And I think we'll go 2-1.
2-1. Adam?
Based on everything and based
on both questions again, what's the percentage chance of survival and what's the score going to be Wednesday?
I will push us. I'll be the optimist here and say I'll push us into double figures. We've got a 10% chance of survival, which does mean if you run this season 100 times, we go down in 90 of them. But hey, let a guy dream. I think based on what's been said as to how this can fall both ways, I think maybe we're due a draw. I think it's been a while since Swansea had a draw at home, and I think there's ways that they can threaten us and ways that we can threaten them. So let's level it out at 1-1.
Sam, percentage chance of survival and a score?
About 7% I'd go for, just based on the goal difference and just how annoying everyone's being in terms of their form. Oxford looked like they were absolutely dropping like a stone. Why the hell did they go and beat Sheffield United, for goodness sake? Why? Who made football a funny old game? The thing is, not only is that bad for our survival, we could do with Sheffield United winning. We get $1 million for Cooper if they go up. So that's a right pain in the arse. You beat that result, pain in the proverbial. Score prediction. Adam slightly took the wind out of my sails for that one. It's a genuinely in terms of the analytical side of my brain, is thinking where we actually could get a win, because not only are we improving quite a bit the last 2 or 3 games, they're also on dreadful form. But shall we say, the gut instinct of me of having regularly watched the team for 22 odd years is thinking that we've just dangled that little carrot of hope, only for it to then be sort of cruelly snatched away, and there will be another bump in the road in the improvement. Whilst we are still, trending in a positive direction in terms of the performances over the last 3-4 games, the improvement will not necessarily be linear. There will be bumps in the road. So my gut is saying that we lose, even though my head is actually saying we might win, which is remarkable because often it's the other way around. I'm not going to make any promises of dressing up in any outrageous way if I'm wrong. But I'm sorry to be the misery gut, so I'm going to go with my gut here rather than my head, which is bad news for Argyle. If I'm right, I'm going to go 2-1 defeat.
Adam, just to let you know, 4th of January, a 1-1 draw with West Brom was Swansea's last home draw. So just did a little bit of digging while Sam was talking. I'm going to go with, same as you, Adam, I'm going to go with a 10% chance of survival. I do think the proof of life was there on Saturday afternoon. Whether or not it's going to be there at 10 p.m. on Wednesday night is a totally different ballgame. But I just think that this has got all the hallmarks of proving our own selves wrong a little bit, that we might well be able to back it up again on Wednesday night, and we will get a result. Things will go our way, and then Home Park will have a huge expectation on it on Saturday lunchtime. So I'm going to go with a repeat 1-0 win at Swansea. It won't be quite as hanging on as it was last year, but I do think that we will score in the second half. It will be Ryan Hardy because it's what he does. So I think 1-0, 10% survival chance, and results will go our way, and that 10% will become significantly greater by the time we are live on Sunday night. There are a couple of questions that did come in whilst we were previewing Swansea, so I'll just quickly get to them. Stevie Vaughan asks, is it possible Sheffield Wednesday could be docked points for failure to pay wages? From what I understand from reading the journalists online, it's not going to be a points deduction, but they face a 3 transfer window embargo if the money is not paid by the end of next week or something. So Chansiri is right up against it. But as far as I know, there's no immediate concern for a points deduction. An Accidental Pilgrimass is the game on TV. It is on Sky Sports Plus on Wednesday night, or Argyle TV, whichever is your particular fancy.
Well, only if you're out of the UK, of course.
And yes, unless you're out of the UK. No, it's midweek. You can get the
not with the Sky
midweek
Sports
games,
Plus.
can't you?
Can you even with the? Because I thought technically, well, again, can I go to the games? I don't know, but I thought because it's now on Sky Sports Plus, Argyle TV couldn't show them anymore, unless I'm much mistaken on that.
Oh, I'm not sure. I don't know. I watch Sky Sports Plus anyway, so it doesn't matter. But I'm just trying to promote Argyle TV as best I can. That's it, gents. Unless we have anything else that we need to discuss before the end of tonight's show. We've been going for an hour and 20 minutes. I think that's long enough. Do join us again on Thursday night. I have absolutely no idea who's in charge because it's not me. I'm at Newton Abbot Races for their season opener, which will be a jolly good afternoon. So do join us again Thursday night, 8 p.m, when we will dissect the Swansea game and look forward to the return of Michael Cooper, the return of the prodigal son, on Saturday lunchtime, once again in front of the nation. Thank you very much for joining us. Keep your eyes peeled to social media because Sam and Aaron have been very busy boys in recent days, and we have another My Argyle Life coming your way. If you thought the last one was popular, you haven't seen anything yet. So
This
do
one
look
was a
out for
very
that.
good one, and I absolutely loved recording it. And I think you'll all, when you find out who it is, you'll love listening to it.
Yeah, I'm going to go as far as Sam is saying this is going to be our most popular one yet. So do enjoy watching that whenever it comes out. I think the plan is to get you a little teaser in the coming days. But from all of us at the Green and White Podcast, brought to you by Argyle Life, have a splendid evening, and we'll see you on Thursday night.